I'm Steph, aka Literati Medium. And today is my summer wrap-up and October TBR. I have been failing to upload consistently on my channel for about the past 6 months, and to those of you that watch my channel regularly, just know that I'm sorry. I promise that I have not given up, I just had to reprioritize some things, which meant that my booktube channel had to take a little bit of a backseat. I will keep posting. It's just that all I can say about my future upload schedule is that it's going to be a bit sporadic. Anyways, back to what you came here for. I read over 30 books this summer, and in an effort to save you guys some time, I'm going to use the format that Salty Caroline Reads on TikTok uses and do some one-sentence reviews. I will link her TikTok down below if you don't follow her already. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. An enemies to lovers trope that has incredibly unprofessional behavior that my sister and I DNF'd while we were driving to my grandmother's 90th birthday party. 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. A beautiful literary fantasy where a young girl who can open doors to other universes fights against white male privilege. The Atlas 6 by Olive E. Blake. This was my first dip into dark academia, and it was kind of predictable, but I still really enjoyed all the characters. A Marriage of Convenience with a Beastly Duke by Sally Forbes. This is a story of a blind woman who enters into a marriage of convenience with a scarred duke that had way too much giggling and ableism, even if it ended up in a decent place. A Lady Awakened by Cecilia Grant. This was a recommended historical romance with good banter between the two protagonists who are trying to get pregnant so that the heroine can keep her dead husband's fortune. A Gentleman Undone by Cecilia Grant. The second book in the Blackshear trilogy that just didn't grab my attention, even if the female protagonist was pretty cool, so I DNF'd it. Croak by Gina D'Amico. A book with a main protagonist so horrible and annoying that I didn't want to stick around and find out if she got any better by the end. The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. A retelling of The Bride of Habik where the female character has agency, the side characters are really interesting, and the settings are described beautifully that I'm liking so much that I'm already rereading it to annotate. Summer Suns by Lee Mandello. An Own Voices LGBTQIA+ horror that really should have been written as a romantic suspense that talks way too much about drugs and cars. The Year Before the End by Vidar Hogstad. A book that I was asked to review that had a really interesting premise, but that had a big info dumping and telling problem, so I DNF'd it. Uprooted by Naomi Novik. A very loose retelling of Beauty and the Beast with great romantic tension that could be really toxic if it weren't for the fact that the main female protagonist doesn't take any of the male protagonist's shit. Fire in His Blood by Ruby Dixon. My first attempt at a monster romance that in the end I just didn't really find realistic that they were mates because all they had in common were spicy times and there were dynamics in their relationship that were going to cause problems in the long run. A Deal with the Elf King by Elise Kova. A fae romance where the male protagonist grows on you even if he is a complete ass in the beginning. Malice by Heather Walter. A sapphic villain origin story of Sleeping Beauty that was a pleasant surprise, but the conflict could have been resolved with just a little better communication. Defy the Worlds by Claudia Gray. The second book in the trilogy that was my favorite book from 2021 that's still really good, but the protagonists spend way too much time apart and they're better together. Defy the Fates by Claudia Gray. A satisfying conclusion to the trilogy, even if my favorite character did become a narcissistic know-it-all in the beginning and forgot to get some really important consent for some non-spicy issues that I can forgive because I honestly can't say I wouldn't have made the same choice. The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. A book that is as well written as everybody says it is. The Book Eaters by Suni Dean. A book with beautiful prose that deals with motherhood, queer identity, and finding your place in the world that I highly recommend. The Girl in His Shadow by Nora Beatty. A historical medical drama with a kick-ass female protagonist, a love story that I enjoyed but my book club did not, but at the end of the day, just had nothing new or interesting about it. Blindsided by Amy Dawes. A sports plus-size romance with Demi Rep that has a duet narration that's really good and is just a nice fluffy time. Challenge by Amy Dawes, a book with a great audiobook that even though the doctor-patient relationship was a bit cringe, I still really enjoyed it. Endurance by Amy Dawes, another great audiobook, except the relationship is so toxic that I didn't want them together by the end. 20th Century Ghosts by Joe Hill, an anthology of short stories by Joe Hill that I read for my book versus adaptation of The Black Phone that has a really good human element mixed in with the grotesque, and you can see my book versus adaptation here. I'm pretty sure that's wrong. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, a book that has beautiful prose, but at the end of the day feels more like vibes over substance. Air of Memory and Shadow by Roshni Lamino, a cute, clean fantasy with an interesting magic system. The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. This is a loose retelling of 1001 Nights that at the end of the day wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Magic Under Glass by Jacqueline Dollimore, a fae fantasy that gives off Phantom of the Opera and Jane Eyre vibes, but that falls short of both. Scarlet Princess by Robin D. Mela, a book with interesting political intrigue even if the main romantic interest is kind of boring. The Tarnished Crown by Robin D. Mala. I was wrong about the romantic interest, but it was so worth it. Crimson Kingdom by Robin D. Mala, one of the best slow burn romances I've read in a long time. Love on the Brain by Allie Hazelwood, a book that I read in a day and a half with a really cute enemies to lovers story set in NASA that definitely wasn't originally a Raylo fanfic. How to Keep House While Drowning, a gentle approach to cleaning and organizing by Casey Davis, a book that changed my life and how I approach cleaning. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by Frank L. Baum, a great audiobook narrated by Anne Hathaway but otherwise was fine. Kismet by Lauren Blakely, an insta-love workplace romance that I listened to on the train that was cute but otherwise fine. The Virgin Next Door by Lauren Blakely, a cute romance with a sex-positive virgin and a likable love interest. House of Blades by Will White, one of the most unique and interesting high fantasies I've read in a really long time. The Marvelous Land of Oz by Frank L. Baum, an unnecessary sequel whose views on women really do not hold up to today's standards. So you may have noticed that I had an outfit change. That's because the lighting in here just wasn't right for filming, so I had to stop and come back and refilm. And now it's 2 weeks later. If you read any of my summer reads, let me know down in the comments below. And now let's get into what I'm currently reading or what I plan on finishing for the rest of October. This October, I am participating in the Stephen King Readathon hosted by the Bookish Drummer Discord. The prompts are all based on Stephen King books, and I'm on Team Pennywise, so these are my prompts. For a book with a paranormal being or creature, I chose Wolf Gone Wild by Juliet Cross. What I know about this book is that a werewolf seeks a witch who can help break a hex that keeps him from transforming. For a book with a falsely accused character, I chose Chapter and Curse by Elizabeth Penny. It might be Elizabeth Penny, a cozy murder mystery that takes place in a 400-year-old bookshop where the main character's aunt's knitting needle is the murder weapon. For a book with death as a theme or subject, I chose There Will Come a Darkness by Katie Rose Poole. Before the prophets that ruled disappeared, they left one last prophecy that foretells the coming of an age of darkness. For a book with a found family trope, I chose The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. A woman who is secretly a witch but with a social media presence gets hired to teach 3 young witches how to control their powers. For a book I haven't read in a while, I chose The Hunter by L.J. Smith. A young girl and her friends get sucked into a haunted house game where they have to go through each room and face their worst nightmares, and they're brought there by a mysterious young being who has a thing for the main character. For a book with aliens or extraterrestrials, I chose The Tommyknockers by Stephen King. Something happens in a quiet New England town that gives all of the residents of the town strange powers. If you made it to this point in the video, leave me a jack-o'-lantern down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.